Everything is happening for my good. Let's just say that. Everything is happening for my good. Really, Reverend Rainbow? Even horrible things? Everything is happening for my good. We might not realize it at the time, but later on it comes to us. Oh, that's why that was happening. Have you ever done anything in your life and you never asked permission to do it? You never asked other people what they thought about it. You didn't ask them for their opinion. You didn't care. When you did that, you were acting audaciously. You were using your audacity. And I know many of you have heard the story of how I ever got to Hawaii, but I'd like to reiterate it this morning because it illustrates what I'm talking about. Way back in the 60s, one of my children died. Eric, he was 2.5 years old. And then his father committed suicide at that time. It just seemed like the end of the world to me. And I was living in LA and I was so tired. I thought LA's vibrations were doing it. I didn't really understand things about it's a God thing or anything. I was an agnostic and I wanted to move to an island somewhere, an island. And so I researched all islands and it was down to an island in the Caribbean and Kauai in Hawaii. And in the book, it said, there's a man that lives on Kauai. His name is Dr. Bernard Wheatley, and he gave up medicine to follow the life of Jesus and find peace. And I wasn't really religious at the time, but I said, if this guy can find it there, I can too. So I picked up my 5-year-old son and we moved to Kauai. And when we were there, we bought a VW, a green VW, and we painted flowers all over the car. And people would yell, hippie, go home, hippie. And I would yell back, just get to know me, you'll really love me. And so I was driving around the island in this flowery car when I saw somebody walking with a backpack, and I always stopped for everybody walking. So I stopped and asked him if he wanted a ride. And he said, God told me to refuse the first 5 rides and take this one. And this is the 5th ride. How do you do? I'm Dr. Bernard Wheatley. And he's the guy I read about in the travel book. And we stayed together for 9 years. He was my spiritual guru, but God really meant it for my good. I didn't know anything about New Thought. I didn't know anything about anything. And he had written an article for Unity magazine, and I began meditating and doing all these things. And once in my meditation, it said religious science. And so there you go. That's the story, the God thing of how I am a minister now by following and moving to an island in Kauai. You never know. In fact, today the printer wasn't able to print, and I thought, what's the good in this? My sermon isn't going to be printed out. And I finally realized it meant you can give the message without all those pieces of paper, Rainbow. It actually increased my self-esteem. So the noun audacity comes from the word audacia, which is derived from audax, meaning bold or daring in Latin. It was associated with the qualities of boldness, fearlessness, and willingness to take risks. Where have you heard that before? It has evolved over time, and in English, it can refer to both positive and negative interpretations of it. The negative is presumpting impudence and implying contempt for moral restraint. And the positives is, of course, being bold and original and full of vigor in what we're doing. It depends on the context of what we're doing. And as Janice read, audacity is the spark that ignites greatness, and dare to be different. Ernest Holmes tells us, every desire you have for betterment in life is some echo from deep within, which forever proclaims, behold, I make all things new. And that's what Ernest Holmes said in this thing called You, because you see, everything happens for my good. He goes on to say, he always has a lot to say about everything. Every person represents an individualization of universal wholeness. Every person represents the love, the peace, the joy, and freedom of the spirit. And therefore, we have a divine right to rise above fear, to rise above impoverishment and disease. We should have confidence that the power of the Spirit expresses through every atom of our being right now. It expresses through every atom of our being right now. Isn't that fantastic? Yes, indeed. This moment is so sacred, and he says that in something called spiritual awareness. Sometimes some people express audacity disrespectfully, like when the person absolutely did the following, and you say, she had the audacity to hang up on me. Sometimes people do things like that. Have you ever encountered somebody who has the audacity to speak their mind fearlessly, no matter what they're saying, regardless of the consequences? Oh my goodness, audacity, a trait that embodies boldness and a willingness to take risks and to push boundaries. The root of the word core in courage is Latin root for heart. Courage originally meant to speak one's mind by telling all of what's in one's heart, says Brene Brown in The Gifts of Imperfection. And somebody who used her audacity to push through painful and traumatic experiences in her life is Oprah Winfrey. And I want to tell you about what she grew up and had to go through. It's very unique. From a very early age, she experienced so much adversity and poverty. Her parents were 18 and 19 when she came to the earth, and then they left and they broke up their marriage, and she was given to her grandmother to take care of her. And her grandmother wasn't the fuzzy, huggy kind of grandmother. Her grandmother was very strict disciplinarian and kept punishing her for the most everything she did. The grandmother was really a cold disciplinarian. And so eventually Oprah went back to live with her mother. And while she was living with her mother, a lot of her relatives sexually abused her. She had many, many rapes and terrible things happen to her while she was living with her mother. And eventually she got pregnant when she was 14. And her mother was so upset about that. She kicked her out, just threw her out of the house when she was 14 and pregnant. And then she went to live with her father. And a week after she moved in with her father, the baby was born dead. And so that was just horrible. All the things that happened to her were just horrible, horrible, horrible. And so finally, she just left living with her father, and something came over her that I'm not going to live like this anymore. And she wanted to make a commitment to make something of her life. She actually enrolled in school and got educated and transformed her life. And something happened to her. She wanted to enter into a beauty pageant when she was getting her love for herself back. And she entered into this beauty pageant, and all of a sudden she was hired to do the news lady on a television channel. And when she was hired to report the news, all of a sudden she got a promotion, and she was head of the news on the news channel. And she realized she loved talking to groups of people. So what happened was she got a job to have her own chat kind of experience in Rhode Island. And eventually she moved to Chicago and started her own program with her own name, The Oprah Winfrey Show. And she is one of the richest, absolutely, show host and original in all of history. That is so great. And what she tells us to do, she says, trust your heart and success will come to you. You know, you can try something 1,000 times, and if you do it half-heartedly and timidly without much passion, then you will probably fail 1,000 times. You won't experience any growth, and you certainly won't find success. You should take that first step, but you must do it with, you guessed it, audacity. Yes, indeed. You must be willing to take bold risks. And as Benjamin Disraeli, twice the Prime Minister of England, once remarked, success is the child of audacity. So today I want to share with you, for all us people pleasers out there, all of us recovery codependent people out there, I want to talk about boundaries. Yes, boundaries are so important. We must be clear, consistent, and respectful of our own boundaries. And the most important boundary I want to start with, and that is, we are going to discuss saying no. N-O, saying no. And that is something for us codependent recovery people find difficulty. So first of all, I want you to make a list and priorities, all those things that you love that make you happy, healthy, and sane, that keep you happy, healthy, and sane. And then I want you to say no to all kinds of things that don't interest you. Say no, but respectfully observe the other person's boundaries when you're saying no. You can say no by explaining to the person. You have to take time to focus on your physical and mental health. That's why you're saying no. You could say that when you say no. If you can say no in the moment, you could say, let me think about that and get back to you. That's another way you can say no and take time to think about it. Or you can send the call, if it's a call, send it to voicemail, and then you can deal with it on your own time and listen to it. Wait a few hours or days before returning a text, an email, or a call. And moving on to other kinds of boundaries, when you're dealing with difficult people, inform them of your decision. You made a decision without asking their permission and saying, is it okay? And getting their input. When you have made a decision, you absolutely be audacious and tell them about it. Or you could take a mental health day and focus on nurturing yourself and being good to yourself. And this next one, I love it. When someone hurts you and maybe didn't intend to hurt you, you can say, ouch. You can say, ouch, when somebody hurts you. And then you can explain to them why what they said absolutely hurt you. I want you to memorize this phrase. I'd rather not answer that. Memorize this phrase when someone asks you a question you don't want to answer. You could say, I'd rather not answer that, or I'm not ready to talk about that yet. I recently asked somebody a question to do something, and what they said was, they said it very nicely, I'm going to pass on that. Isn't that cool? I'm going to pass on that. They said it with love, and it was really, really great. Remember, ouch, remember, I don't care to answer that right now. It's absolutely great. So here are some things you can do for self-love. Right now, I'd like you to compliment something you really like about yourself. Think about it. Is there something you really like about yourself? And if you learn to love others and let others love you, that's a critical component of self-love. If you love yourself and let others love you. And this last one is so important. There's a fine balance between working on yourself, you know, how great we're working on ourselves, we're deepening, and thinking, oh my God, oy vey, there's something wrong with me and I need to fix it. No, we can work on ourselves without criticizing ourselves and say, there's something wrong with me and I need to fix it. Michael Beckwith says, having the courage to come face to face with ourselves is the portal through which we can view the pristine features of our original face. We can view the pristine features of our original face. Wow, which includes the qualities of unconditional love, compassion, peace, joy, creativity, and absolute contentment of being, the pristine features of our original face. And Valerie Kaur says, audacity is the spark that ignites greatness. Dare to be different, audaciously. No dream is too audacious to pursue. And Goethe says, no dream is too audacious to pursue. The audacious take risks, and the rewards are really worth it. Audacity is the fuel that drives progress. Boldness is the action, is the essence of audacity. It's the bridge from imagination to reality, because remember, everything is happening for my good. I want to tell you about somebody else that really touched me. His name is Desmond Doss, and he was a United States Army corporal who served as a combat medic in World War II. He was a conscientious objector and was picked on all the time by his fellow soldiers. They labeled him a coward. He was made fun of because he didn't want to carry a gun and because he didn't work on Saturdays because of his religious beliefs. So what happened was he became the only conscientious objector to receive the Medal of Honor when he single-handedly saved the lives of 75 men in the Battle of Okinawa. In the process, he had his left arm fractured by a sniper's bullet and 17 pieces of shrapnel in his body. He got that Medal of Honor award, and he was a conscientious objector because everything was happening for his good. Yes, indeed. I want to tell you that our letters today are ABC. Yes, indeed. The A stands for, you guessed it, audacity. We've had a lot of experiences listening to people who use their audacity. The B is for boundaries, and we have learned some wonderful things about setting our boundaries. And the C is for courage. ABC. Learn your ABCs. And please join me today in the conclusion, because I want to share with you a fabulous poem by Maya Angelou. The poem is called Still I Rise. Won't you join me while I share with you this poem? She lived from 1928 to 2014, and she was the poet laureate for the United States. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust I rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk that like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moons and suns with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I rise. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries. Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard, 'cause I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words. You may cut me with your eyes. You may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of huts of history shame, I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling I bear in the tide, leaving behind nights of terror and fear. I rise in daybreak that's wondrously clear. I rise, bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. Won't you join me in treatment? Let's take a deep breath and know today that all of God is present right here, right now. Isn't that fabulous? All of God is present, expressing as each of us individually, expressing perfectly in our physical body, in our audacity, in our spiritual health, our openness to hear Spirit and how Spirit needs us today, how Spirit is using us today, how sweet it is to be an individualization of God and to be prosperous and to be peaceful and to be loving and to expressing our individuality, uplifting all of creation. We are audaciously original. Yes, we are beautifully, audaciously original, and we rejoice and are glad in it. How beautiful it is as I release these words into the law, knowing they are manifest even as I am now speaking them. And together we say, and so it is. Amen and amen.